Today I'm chatting with Bennett, founder and director of Second Voice. Second Voice is a business consultancy that supports companies of all shapes and sizes and at any stage of their journey, helping them to determine the best course of action for future success. This is done through a mix of training, coaching, mentoring, as well as business and financial modelling, established from over 20 years of hands-on experience in business development. Ben, you've had a career, I would say, predominantly in sales and working very much from a client-side perspective. Tell me a little bit about your career journey and what were the reasons for you to start your own business?
Great question. I think the journey was quite when you look back, it's one of the ones that sort of appeared as it was always going to happen. And I remember being very young, being part of the Cubs and the Scouts movement. And we used to be a part of a donkey derby, which is a very, very low level version of the Grand National, where you just bring donkeys to a field and race them and bet on them. And there's lots of fates and things. And part of our involvement was going round selling tickets to this local donkey derby. So actually, looking at where my career led, I started at a very young age, knocking on doors, selling to people directly. But actually, when you move into the world of work, it was a entry into customer services, more of a need for a job as a young man, and was recognised quite quickly as somebody that was fairly confident in having conversations and asking questions and relatively curious. And that sort of was the way I fell into sales and progressed through a number of different sectors. So data, media, software, events, and as time went on, sort of become more skilled in the craft. And then started to take on more strategic positions within organizations, which was the element that I really enjoyed. So more of the planning and execution rather than the day-to-day of the customer acquisition piece. And from there, just really fell in love with the industry and with the psychology of selling as well, understanding human behaviors, why people say yes, why they say no, considerations, and building this into a far more constructed, logical way of going to market as a salesperson, as a business, and as a consultant as well. And then being able to pass that knowledge on, I started a training company, helping organizations upskill their sales teams, and then looking at their strategic plans as well. And my company, Second Voice, just sort of expanded out from being simply a training organization into strategic planning, consultancy, doing interim positions, and becoming a really exciting opportunity for me to work with lots of different businesses in different verticals. So it was it felt like it was a predetermined journey, but as with most people in sales, it was something I fell into and then fell in love with it after that.
It seems quite a big leap to make from being fully employed into going and running your own business. What was going through your head at the time when you kind of said, well, I'm going to do this? Or was there an inflection point, i.e. you were made redundant or something like that actually pushed you in that direction?
It was something that I wanted to do already. I think a lot of people that work for themselves or have gone on to start their own businesses, regardless of the scale, there's always, well, for me at least, it seemed like there was that itch that needed to be scratched, and having the freedom to make my own mistakes and come up with my own conclusions, and that freedom was something that I really craved. But I started the business with a view to try and make a difference, and genuinely it wasn't a case of I can earn more money. It was actually how can I add value and how can I learn more at the same time. And, going through that knowledge acquisition when working with different companies was something that really appealed to me. And so I wanted to pursue that. And part of the timing was not good. So there's never a good time to start a business, but it was around 5 years ago, off the back of working for a large agency down here in Brighton, and it was a case of jump in with 2 feet. And I recognise now, obviously, I didn't do as much of the strategic planning that I later became
known for.
Well, exactly. Yeah, I'm meant to be teaching that, but I made all the mistakes, which was fantastic. And then when I fully relaunched the business in its current guise, I decided to do it at a time when we were moving house and having a child. So, as I said, timing, or either my choice of timing or the timing wasn't exactly ideal, but that's how we end up where we are today.
So of those early days when you were moving into the startup or your startup, are there any of the things that you learnt there that you use with businesses that you deal with today?
Absolutely. Financial planning. And it was, from a sales perspective, I find it obvious how to acquire customers and how to work with and service those customers once you have them in a partnership. But the bit that I wasn't good at and actually didn't understand is how to manage company finances, how to pay myself. It seems really obvious now that I know, but all the tools that were available, your cloud accounting software, or actually employing an accountant and recognizing that I don't have to do all of these things myself. They were some of the fastest lessons and the hardest lessons I had. And it bothered me because I didn't know, and I didn't have the network to ask at the time within that area. And these are things that I'm learning more and more of as we go. And my poor accountant still gets me on the phone quite regularly. Not getting a grilling, they're actually fantastic, but they spend a lot of time with me, educating me, helping me understand. And that's been really useful because now I can then sort of pass that knowledge on, although I don't profess to be an accountancy professional by any stretch of the imagination. But there are elements that you learn along the way. And, one thing I would certainly urge is if you don't know, just ask the question. You're bound to have a friend or a family or someone in your network that you could ask. And that's what I did. It's recognize that is an area that I am not an expert in, and move forwards appropriately and cautiously until you are aware and conscious of what's required, really.
You're listening to the shortened version of this podcast. To listen to the full version, visit your favourite podcast player and search for Webtrends Optimize or The Big Lift.